When my future in-laws laughed at my pathetic little backyard wedding and called me an embarrassment to their family name, they had no idea that 3 phone calls would transform their mockery into the most humiliating silence of their lives. What they discovered about my past would shake their wealthy social circle to its foundation. Before we jump back in, tell us where you're tuning in from, and if this story touches you, make sure you're subscribed, because tomorrow I've saved something extra special for you. The morning sun filters through the sheer curtains of my modest apartment as I sit at my grandmother's antique writing desk, addressing wedding invitations with careful, practiced handwriting. Each envelope represents a choice I have made deliberately to keep this celebration intimate, meaningful, and true to the values that have sustained me through 28 years of life that have been anything but conventional. My name is Sarah Catherine Hayes, though most people in Millfield know me simply as the quiet librarian who moved here 3 years ago to run the town's struggling community library. What they do not know, what I have chosen not to share, is that my last name was once spoken in the same breath as words like service, sacrifice, and honor, in circles far removed from this peaceful New England town of 8,000 residents. The invitation in my hands bears the address of Margaret and Harrison Whitmore, parents of my fiancé David, who have made their feelings about our upcoming union abundantly clear through a series of increasingly uncomfortable conversations. The Whitmores represent old money in its most pristine form, fourth-generation wealth built on textile manufacturing, real estate investments, and the kind of social connections that open doors before they are even approached. Their Georgian mansion on Elm Street stands as a monument to their family's prominence, complete with manicured gardens and a circular driveway designed to showcase the luxury vehicles of their frequent guests. Margaret Whitmore has never directly stated that she considers me unsuitable for her son, but her communication style relies heavily on pointed observations and carefully constructed suggestions that leave little room for misinterpretation. During our last encounter at the country club, she remarked with theatrical concern that David deserved, quote, someone who understands his background and can help him maintain his social position. Her husband Harrison proves more direct in his disapproval, frequently commenting that David should marry quote, within his own class, and expressing bewilderment that his son would choose someone whose family background remains mysteriously undefined. David himself stands caught between 2 worlds that seem increasingly incompatible as our wedding date approaches. At 31, he possesses the earnest charm and genuine kindness that attracted me during our first conversation at the library, where he was researching historical documents for a preservation project his architectural firm was undertaking. His profession suits his personality perfectly. He appreciates both beauty and functionality, understanding that the most enduring structures combine aesthetic appeal with practical strength. These same qualities drew him to me, though he struggles to defend our relationship when his parents express their concerns about my mysterious past and inappropriate social status. The apartment where I live reflects choices that would seem incomprehensible to the Whitmore family, who measure worth through visible displays of affluence and social connections. My 1-bedroom space above Henderson's hardware store costs $400 monthly and contains furniture gathered from estate sales, family pieces inherited from my grandmother, and a few carefully chosen items that serve multiple purposes. The simplicity is intentional. I learned early that material possessions can become burdens that prevent mobility and flexibility when circumstances require rapid adaptation. My work at the Millfield Community Library provides income sufficient for my needs while allowing me to contribute meaningfully to the community that has welcomed me with warmth and acceptance. The position became available when the previous librarian retired, and the town council struggled to find qualified candidates willing to work within their limited budget. My application included credentials that impressed them, though I carefully omitted details about how and where I acquired certain specialized knowledge about information systems, research methodologies, and administrative procedures. The library itself reflects the economic challenges facing small New England towns as younger residents migrate to urban centers and local businesses struggle to compete with national chains. When I arrived, the collection was outdated, the building needed significant repairs, and community engagement had declined to the point where closure seemed inevitable. Working with volunteers and a minimal budget, we have transformed the space into a genuine community center that offers not only traditional library services, but also adult education classes, job search assistance, and meeting space for local organizations. This work provides deep satisfaction that has nothing to do with salary or prestige. Every day brings opportunities to help community members access information they need. Whether a high school student researching college applications, a recently unemployed factory worker learning computer skills, or elderly residents maintaining connections with family members through email and social media. The relationships formed through these interactions have created a support network that sustains me emotionally and practically, though I am careful to maintain appropriate boundaries that protect both my privacy and my effectiveness. The Whitmore family views my profession with poorly concealed condescension that they attempt to disguise as concern for David's future financial security. During a family dinner last month, Margaret observed that public service work is admirable for young people, but hardly provides the foundation for a stable marriage in today's economic climate. Harrison added his opinion that David should marry someone who could contribute meaningfully to family enterprises and social obligations, rather than someone whose career represents noble but impractical idealism. These comments reveal assumptions about my background, capabilities, and motivations that are simultaneously accurate and completely wrong. The Whitmores correctly perceive that I lack the social connections and family wealth that would automatically qualify me as an appropriate daughter-in-law in their world. They accurately observe that my lifestyle choices prioritize service over accumulation, community engagement over social climbing, and authenticity over appearance. However, their analysis fails completely to account for the experiences and relationships that shaped these priorities, the skills and knowledge I have acquired through unconventional channels, and the network of connections that exists entirely outside their social sphere. The wedding we have planned reflects values that the Whitmore family finds both incomprehensible and embarrassing. Rather than the elaborate celebration they envision, complete with country club venue, professional catering, and guest list comprising their social and business associates, David and I have chosen to exchange vows in my small backyard garden, followed by a reception in the library's community room for 60 carefully selected guests. Our invitations were designed and printed by a local artist whose work I admire. Our flowers will come from community gardens tended by library volunteers, and our reception will feature food prepared by friends who insisted on contributing their culinary skills rather than expensive gifts. The budget for our entire celebration equals less than what the Whitmores typically spend on a single dinner party, a fact that Margaret mentioned with horrified fascination during our last conversation. She expressed particular concern that David's professional colleagues and social contacts would judge the family harshly based on what she termed the spectacle of such obvious economizing. Her suggestion that they would be happy to contribute to a more appropriate celebration carried the clear implication that our choices reflect financial limitations rather than deliberate values-based decisions. David struggles with his parents' disapproval, torn between loyalty to his family and commitment to our relationship. He understands intellectually that their objections stem from social prejudices and status anxiety rather than legitimate concerns about compatibility or character. But the emotional pressure of family conflict affects him deeply. His attempts to explain our choices to his parents result in conversations that leave him frustrated and defensive, feeling that he must choose between two aspects of his life that he values highly. Last week's confrontation at the Whitmore mansion reached a level of hostility that surprised even me with its directness. Margaret announced that she could no longer pretend to support what she characterized as David's, quote, infatuation with someone so obviously beneath his station. Harrison added that they would attend the wedding only to, quote, prevent complete social embarrassment, and that they expected David to, quote, come to his senses before it was too late to remedy this situation gracefully. The conversation concluded with Margaret's declaration that my little backyard ceremony would be the laughingstock of proper society, and that she intended to limit her family's association with what she predicted would be a marriage that reflects poorly on everyone involved. Her words stung not because I value her approval, but because I recognize the pain they cause David, who genuinely loves his parents despite their flaws and desperately wants their acceptance of his choices. That evening, David and I had our most serious conversation about whether proceeding with our wedding was fair to either of us, given the family conflict it was creating. David expressed willingness to postpone the ceremony or modify our plans to appease his parents, though I could see the internal struggle these suggestions represented. His desire to maintain family harmony conflicted with his recognition that compromising our values would establish a precedent that could undermine our marriage from its beginning. My response surprised him with its calm certainty. I explained that my past had taught me the difference between relationships based on genuine acceptance and those dependent on meeting external expectations or conditions. The Whitmore family's objections revealed their character more clearly than any amount of polite social interaction could have done. Their inability to respect our choices or recognize the sincerity of our commitment demonstrated that their approval would always be conditional on conformity to their standards, rather than appreciation of our actual compatibility and happiness. The conversation also provided an opportunity to share with David some context about my background that I had previously kept private, not from shame or deception, but from a learned caution about revealing information that could be misunderstood or misused. I explained that my values regarding service, authenticity, and community engagement were not abstract ideals adopted through academic study or social activism, but practical principles developed through experiences that had tested their validity under extreme circumstances. David's response to these partial revelations confirmed my assessment of his character and strengthened my confidence in our decision to marry despite family opposition. Rather than pressing for details I was not ready to share, he expressed appreciation for my willingness to provide context and assured me that his commitment to our relationship was based on who I am now, rather than curiosity about my past. His maturity and respect for my boundaries demonstrated the emotional intelligence that first attracted me and continues to sustain our partnership. Preparing and narrating this story took us a lot of time, so if you are enjoying it, subscribe to our channel. It means a lot to us. Now back to the story. As I complete the final wedding invitations, including the one addressed to Governor Patricia Morrison, I reflect on the journey that brought me to this peaceful morning in this quiet town. Preparing to marry a man whose family considers me unworthy of their acceptance. The irony is not lost on me that the same experiences they would judge as disqualifying have equipped me with perspectives and capabilities that could benefit their family and community significantly, if they possessed the wisdom to recognize and appreciate them. The phone on my desk rings, interrupting my contemplation. The caller identification shows a number I have not seen in over 2 years, though I recognize it immediately. Governor Morrison's personal assistant, Jennifer Valdez, speaks with the professional warmth that characterizes all of her communications. "Sarah, the governor received your invitation and wanted me to call personally. She is absolutely delighted that you are getting married and insists on attending if her schedule permits. Could we discuss the details so we can make appropriate arrangements?" The conversation that follows lasts 20 minutes and covers logistics that seem routine to Jennifer but would astonish anyone who assumes that a small-town librarian's social network consists primarily of other public servants and community volunteers. Security considerations, transportation coordination, and protocol requirements are discussed with the casual efficiency that characterizes interactions between people who have navigated such arrangements many times previously. After ending the call, I sit quietly for several minutes, processing the implications of the governor's likely attendance at our wedding. The Whitmore family's reaction to this development will force them to confront assumptions about my background, capabilities, and social connections that they have held with such certainty. More importantly, their response will reveal character traits that David needs to understand clearly before we begin our married life together. The final invitation requires special handling. Governor Morrison deserves a personal note that acknowledges both our professional history and the friendship that developed from mutual respect and shared commitment to public service. As I begin writing, I smile at the thought of Margaret Whitmore's expression when she realizes that her embarrassing little backyard wedding will be attended by the most powerful political figure in the state. The note completed and sealed, I gather the invitations for delivery to the post office, where Mrs. Henderson will undoubtedly notice the governor's address and begin the gentle speculation that characterizes information sharing in small towns. By evening, most of Millfield will know that their librarian has some connection to the state capitol that extends beyond routine public service interactions. The transformation that is about to unfold will test everyone involved, revealing character and priorities with uncomfortable clarity. The Whitmore family will discover that their assumptions about social hierarchy and appropriate relationships are more complex than their experience has prepared them to understand. David will see his parents, values, and behavior through new perspective that may challenge his idealized view of family relationships. The community that has accepted me based on present contributions will learn that my past contains elements they never suspected. For me, this wedding represents not just the beginning of married life, but the integration of past and present in ways that honor both my history and my chosen future. The woman who will walk down the aisle has been shaped by experiences that few people could imagine, but the life I am building with David reflects conscious choices about what kind of person I want to be and what kind of community I want to help create. The mockery of my in-laws will transform into something far more complex when they realize that their judgment was based on ignorance rather than insight. Their education in humility is about to begin in the most public way possible, and the lessons they learn will extend far beyond questions of social status and family pride. Before we dive deeper into this transformation, I want to thank you for joining me in this story about finding your worth when others try to diminish it. If you believe that character matters more than social status, and that true dignity cannot be taken away by others' opinions, please consider subscribing. It helps us reach more people who need to remember that their value is not determined by others' approval. Now let us see how assumptions can crumble when truth finally comes to light. The Millfield Post Office occupies a brick building that has served the community since 1892. Its worn wooden floors creaking under the footsteps of residents who have conducted their postal business here for generations. Mrs. Dorothy Henderson, the postmaster for the past 23 years, possesses an encyclopedic knowledge of local addresses, family histories, and the subtle patterns of correspondence that reveal community dynamics to those who pay attention. As I approach her window with my stack of wedding invitations, I notice her practiced eye scanning the addresses with the professional interest that characterizes career postal workers. Most envelopes bear local addresses that she recognizes immediately, but the distinctive letterhead of the governor's office creates a momentary pause in her efficient sorting routine. "Well now, Sarah dear," Mrs. Henderson observes with carefully modulated curiosity, "that is quite an impressive address. Official state business, I suppose?" Her tone carries the gentle probing that represents small-town information gathering at its most sophisticated level. "Personal correspondence," I reply with a smile that acknowledges her curiosity while firmly establishing boundaries around private matters. "Governor Morrison and I have maintained a friendship that I value deeply." The response satisfies Mrs. Henderson's immediate curiosity while raising additional questions that she is too polite to pursue directly. Her professional demeanor remains unchanged, but I observe the slight widening of her eyes that indicates genuine surprise. In a town where everyone's background and connections are thoroughly understood through years of observation and conversation, discovering that the quiet librarian maintains personal relationships with state-level political figures represents significant information that will require careful consideration and discreet sharing. The interaction illustrates the challenge that has shaped my 3 years in Millfield. Maintaining privacy about my past while building authentic relationships in a small community requires constant attention to the balance between openness and discretion. Too much mystery creates suspicion and speculation that can undermine professional effectiveness and personal connections. Too much revelation risks exposing information that could compromise both personal safety and community relationships. The drive home from the post office takes me past the construction site, where David's architectural firm is overseeing the restoration of the historic Millfield Academy, a project that exemplifies his professional philosophy of preserving community heritage while adapting structures for contemporary use. The building served as the town's primary school from 1847 until 1987, when enrollment decline forced consolidation with the regional district. Rather than allowing the structure to deteriorate, community leaders secured grants and private funding to transform it into affordable housing for seniors while maintaining its historical character. David's work on this project demonstrates the qualities that attracted me to him beyond his personal charm and genuine kindness. His approach to architectural challenges reflects deep respect for the past, combined with practical understanding of present needs and future requirements. He studies historical documents to understand original construction techniques and design intentions, then develops solutions that honor that heritage while incorporating modern safety standards and accessibility features. The parallel between his professional methodology and our personal relationship has not escaped my attention. David accepted me as he found me, appreciating my present contributions to his life and our community, while respecting my reluctance to discuss certain aspects of my background. His patience with my gradual revelations reflects the same careful attention to existing foundations that characterizes his architectural practice. Rather than demanding immediate access to all information, he has allowed our relationship to develop at a pace that honors both transparency and trust. This approach contrasts sharply with his parents' attitude toward our relationship. The Whitmore family views my reluctance to discuss my past as evidence of something shameful or disqualifying that must be exposed and evaluated before they can approve of my suitability as a daughter-in-law. Their assumption that family background determines character and capability reflects social prejudices that have been reinforced by generations of privilege and isolation from experiences outside their established social circle. The irony of their position becomes more apparent as I consider the phone call from Governor Morrison's office and the implications of her likely attendance at our wedding. The Whitmore family's entire objection to our marriage rests on their assessment that my social status and family connections are insufficient to justify acceptance into their circle. The revelation that my connections extend far beyond anything they have imagined will force them to confront the limitations of their own understanding and the prejudices that have shaped their judgment. Arriving at my apartment, I find David waiting on the front steps with a bottle of wine and an expression that suggests he has spent considerable time preparing for a difficult conversation. His body language combines nervous energy with determined resolve, indicating that he has made decisions that require discussion but may not be entirely welcome. "Sarah, we need to talk about the wedding," he begins as we settle into my small living room. My parents called this afternoon with what they consider a reasonable compromise proposal that would address their concerns while still allowing us to proceed with our plans. The conversation that follows reveals the extent to which family pressure has affected David's confidence in our decisions and his ability to maintain appropriate boundaries with his parents' interference. Margaret and Harrison Whitmore have developed what they present as a generous solution to the problem of our unconventional wedding plans. They propose to host an engagement party at the country club for their social circle, followed by our planned ceremony for my friends and community connections, and then a formal reception at their home for family members and David's professional colleagues. This three-part celebration would allow them to maintain social face by demonstrating their ability to provide appropriate hospitality, while containing the embarrassment of our actual wedding within a context that their friends would not witness. The proposal includes their willingness to cover all expenses for the country club event and the formal reception, presenting their financial contribution as evidence of acceptance and support for our marriage. David's presentation of this proposal reveals his internal conflict between maintaining family harmony and preserving the integrity of our original plans. He recognizes intellectually that accepting his parents' terms would establish precedents about family decision-making that could undermine our marriage, but the emotional pressure of ongoing conflict has worn down his resistance to their demands. His hope that compromise might restore family unity reflects both his love for his parents and his underestimation of their fundamental objections to our relationship. My response to this proposal requires careful consideration of multiple factors beyond my personal feelings about the Whitmore family's behavior. David's relationship with his parents will continue throughout our marriage, and establishing healthy boundaries now will benefit all future interactions. The broader community will observe how we handle family pressure, and our response will influence their understanding of our values and character. Most importantly, accepting a compromise that validates his parents' assumptions about social hierarchy and appropriate relationships would contradict the principles that have guided my life choices and professional decisions. "David," I say gently, "I appreciate your parents' willingness to contribute financially to our celebration, but their proposal fundamentally misunderstands what we are trying to accomplish with this wedding. We chose an intimate ceremony because we value authenticity over spectacle, community connections over social obligations, and personal meaning over public display. Accepting their terms would transform our celebration into something that reflects their values rather than ours." The discussion that follows explores deeper questions about family relationships, personal integrity, and the foundation we want to establish for our married life. David acknowledges that his parents' proposal represents an attempt to control our decisions rather than support our choices, but he struggles with the emotional difficulty of disappointing people he loves. His desire to maintain family connections conflicts with his recognition that healthy relationships require mutual respect and acceptance rather than conditional approval based on conformity to external expectations. This conversation provides an opportunity to share additional context about my background that will help David understand why maintaining our original wedding plans represents more than stubborn independence or social idealism. The experiences that shaped my values regarding authenticity, community, and service were not abstract philosophical positions adopted through academic study, but practical lessons learned through circumstances that tested their validity under extreme pressure. The wedding we have planned represents who we are and what we believe about relationships, community, and the way we want to live our lives together, I explain. If we allow others to change those plans based on their social prejudices and status concerns, we establish a pattern that will affect every important decision we make as a married couple. Your parents need to understand that respecting our choices is a prerequisite for maintaining positive relationships with us. David's response demonstrates both his growing understanding of the broader implications of this conflict and his increasing confidence in supporting our decisions despite family pressure. He acknowledges that accepting his parents' proposal would validate their belief that their opinions and preferences should override our autonomous decisions as adults. He also recognizes that their objections to our wedding plans reflect deeper concerns about my suitability as a daughter-in-law that cannot be addressed through compromise or accommodation. The conversation concludes with David's commitment to inform his parents that we will proceed with our original wedding plans regardless of their approval or attendance. This decision represents significant personal growth for him, demonstrating his evolution from someone who sought to maintain harmony through accommodation to someone who understands that healthy relationships require establishing appropriate boundaries and expectations. The phone rings as we finish our discussion, interrupting our reflective mood with the distinctive tone that indicates an important call. The caller identification shows Jennifer Valdez's number, and her voice carries the efficient warmth that characterizes all of her professional communications. Sarah, I have wonderful news. Governor Morrison has confirmed her attendance at your wedding and is very much looking forward to the celebration. She asked me to let you know that she considers it an honor to be included in such an important milestone in your life. The conversation that follows covers logistical arrangements that seem routine to Jennifer but would astound anyone who assumes that a small-town librarian's social network consists primarily of local community members. Security protocols, transportation coordination, and schedule modifications are discussed with the casual efficiency that characterizes interactions between people who have managed such arrangements frequently. Jennifer also conveys the governor's request for a brief private conversation during the reception, indicating that their relationship extends beyond formal professional interaction to include personal friendship based on mutual respect and shared experiences. The naturalness of this request, and Jennifer's assumption that accommodating it will present no difficulties, reveals the depth of connection that exists between Governor Morrison and myself. David observes this conversation with growing amazement, as the implications of my relationship with the state's most powerful political figure become apparent. His expression shifts from surprise to curiosity to a dawning understanding that his parents' assumptions about my background and social connections are not merely incorrect, but spectacularly wrong. The realization that their condescending attitudes toward my inadequate social status will be exposed in the most public and humiliating way possible creates a complex mixture of satisfaction and concern about family relationships. After concluding the call, I turn to find David staring at me with an expression that combines awe, confusion, and the beginning of comprehension about aspects of my past that I have kept private not from shame or deception, but from learned caution about revealing information that could be misunderstood or create complications. Sarah, he says carefully, I think it might be time for you to tell me exactly how you know the governor of our state well enough that she considers attending our wedding an honor rather than a political obligation. The conversation that follows represents the first comprehensive revelation of my background and the experiences that brought me to Millfield 3 years ago seeking the peaceful anonymity of small-town life. The story I share with David explains the professional relationships, personal connections, and specialized knowledge that the Whitmore family would find impossible to reconcile with their image of an unsuitable daughter-in-law whose social status embarrasses their family name. My relationship with Governor Morrison began 7 years ago when I was serving as Deputy Director of Emergency Management for the state, a position that required coordinating complex multi-agency responses to natural disasters, security threats, and other crisis situations that demanded immediate action under extreme pressure. The role involved working directly with the governor's office, federal agencies, military commands, and international organizations during situations where communication failures or coordination problems could result in loss of life or significant harm to civilian populations. Governor Morrison and I developed professional respect through a series of crisis situations that tested both our capabilities and our character, under circumstances where political considerations became secondary to practical problem-solving and human welfare. The Hurricane Marina response of 6 years ago in particular demonstrated our ability to work together effectively when traditional bureaucratic procedures proved inadequate for addressing rapidly evolving emergency conditions. The professional relationship evolved into personal friendship based on shared values regarding public service, institutional accountability, and the responsibility that comes with positions of trust and authority. Governor Morrison appreciates people who prioritize results over recognition, community welfare over personal advancement, and practical solutions over political positioning. These qualities created a foundation for mutual respect that has endured despite my transition from state-level emergency management to small-town library administration. David's reaction to these revelations demonstrates both his capacity for understanding complex information and his emotional intelligence in recognizing the trust that such disclosure represents. Rather than pressing for additional details about specific incidents or classified information, he focuses on understanding how these experiences shaped the person he fell in love with and the values that guide our relationship. "This explains so much about you," he says thoughtfully. "The way you handle crisis situations at the library, your ability to coordinate complex community projects, your confidence in dealing with difficult people and challenging circumstances. You were trained for leadership at levels that most people never experience." His response confirms my assessment of his character and strengthens my confidence that our marriage will be built on genuine understanding rather than romantic illusions or incomplete information. David's ability to integrate new knowledge about my background with his existing understanding of my personality and values demonstrates the emotional maturity that first attracted me and continues to sustain our partnership. The revelation also provides context for understanding why the Whitmore family's social prejudices and status concerns seem particularly absurd from my perspective. Having worked at levels of government where decisions affect millions of people, and where professional competence determines life or death outcomes, their preoccupation with country club memberships and social hierarchy appears not just misguided, but almost comically irrelevant to questions of character and capability. More importantly, David now understands why maintaining the integrity of our wedding plans represents more than personal preference or stubborn independence. The values that those plans reflect were tested under circumstances that revealed their practical importance for building relationships and communities that can function effectively under pressure. Compromising those values to accommodate social prejudices would contradict lessons learned through experiences that few people could imagine. As evening settles over Millfield, David and I sit quietly processing the implications of these revelations for our upcoming wedding and our future relationship with his family. The transformation that will occur when Governor Morrison arrives to attend our embarrassing little backyard ceremony will force the Whitmore family to confront assumptions about social hierarchy, appropriate relationships, and the nature of true accomplishment that have shaped their worldview for generations. The education they are about to receive will extend far beyond questions of social status and family pride to fundamental issues of character, judgment, and the difference between appearance and substance. Their mockery will transform into something far more complex when they realize that their condescension was based on ignorance rather than insight, and their humiliation will serve as a lesson about the dangers of judging others based on superficial criteria and social prejudices. The story that will unfold at our wedding will demonstrate that dignity cannot be taken away by others' opinions, that true worth is not determined by external validation, and that the most profound transformations often occur when people are forced to confront the limitations of their own understanding and the prejudices that have shaped their judgment. The Millfield Community Library opens each morning at 8 o'clock sharp, a schedule that has remained unchanged since my arrival 3 years ago. This consistency provides comfort to regular patrons who depend on reliable access to resources and services, while also establishing the professional standards that have transformed our facility from a struggling municipal service into a genuine community hub that serves residents across economic and social boundaries. This particular morning carries additional significance as I prepare for conversations that will shape the final weeks before my wedding. The decisions made today will establish precedents that affect not only the ceremony itself, but also the relationships that will define our married life. The careful preparation required for these discussions mirrors the systematic approach I have learned to apply to complex challenges that demand both strategic thinking and emotional intelligence. Mrs. Eleanor Hartwell arrives precisely at 8:15, maintaining the punctual schedule she has followed for the past 18 months since discovering that our adult education program could help her develop computer skills necessary for maintaining correspondence with grandchildren scattered across the country. Her progress from hesitant beginner to confident user of email and social media platforms represents the kind of individual transformation that makes community service deeply rewarding. "Sarah dear," she begins as I assist her with logging into the computer system, "the most extraordinary thing happened yesterday evening. My neighbor Dorothy mentioned that you have connections to Governor Morrison herself. Surely there must be some misunderstanding about such an important person attending your wedding." The gentle skepticism in her voice reflects the natural incredulity that residents experience when discovering that their quiet librarian maintains relationships that extend far beyond local community boundaries. Mrs. Hartwell represents the thoughtful, curious segment of Millfield residents who process new information carefully rather than accepting it immediately or dismissing it entirely. Her approach to understanding my background demonstrates the respectful inquiry that characterizes mature community relationships. Governor Morrison and I developed a professional relationship several years ago that evolved into personal friendship based on mutual respect and shared values regarding public service. I explain while helping her navigate the email interface. She has graciously accepted our wedding invitation, and I am honored by her willingness to participate in such an important milestone in my life. This response provides sufficient information to satisfy curiosity while maintaining appropriate boundaries around private matters that extend beyond community interest. Mrs. Hartwell processes this explanation with the thoughtful consideration she applies to all new information, recognizing that additional questions would be inappropriate, while acknowledging that her understanding of my background requires significant revision. The interaction illustrates the broader challenge facing Millfield residents as they adjust their perceptions of their librarian based on emerging information about my professional history and social connections. The process of integrating new knowledge with existing relationships demonstrates the community's capacity for accepting complexity and growth, while maintaining the essential trust that enables small-town social fabric to function effectively. The morning proceeds with routine activities that have established the rhythm of my professional life in Millfield. High school students arrive before classes begin to complete research assignments using resources and assistance not available at their school. Unemployed residents utilize our computer facilities and job search assistance programs that provide practical support during difficult transitions. Elderly community members access services ranging from tax preparation assistance to Medicare enrollment guidance that might otherwise require expensive professional consultation. Each interaction reinforces my connection to this community, while demonstrating capabilities that extend beyond traditional library services. The skills I acquired through emergency management training prove invaluable for coordinating complex community programs, managing competing priorities under resource constraints, and facilitating cooperation between diverse groups with different interests and communication styles. The success of these programs has attracted attention from state library systems and municipal governments seeking models for rural community development. Several delegations have visited Millfield to observe our operations and interview community members about the impact of our services on local quality of life and economic development. These visits have generated recognition that positions our library as an exemplar of effective public service innovation, though I have carefully avoided personal publicity that might compromise the privacy I value. The morning's most significant appointment involves meeting with David's parents to discuss wedding arrangements and attempt to establish productive communication patterns for our future family relationships. Margaret and Harrison Whitmore have requested this conversation following David's rejection of their compromise proposal, and their approach will reveal both their capacity for accepting our decisions and their willingness to modify their behavior based on new information about my background. The meeting takes place in the library's conference room, a space designed to accommodate community organizations and provide neutral ground for discussions that might benefit from formal structure and professional atmosphere. Margaret arrives wearing attire appropriate for country club luncheons, while Harrison's business suit reflects his assumption that this conversation represents a negotiation between parties with conflicting interests, rather than a family discussion about wedding celebration. Their body language communicates discomfort with the library setting and skepticism about my willingness to modify positions they consider unreasonable given my social status and family background. Margaret surveys the conference room with the appraising gaze she typically reserves for establishments that fail to meet her standards for appropriate venues, while Harrison checks his watch repeatedly to signal that he considers this meeting an inefficient use of valuable time. Sarah, Margaret begins with the controlled tone she employs when addressing service providers or subordinates. Harrison and I have reconsidered our previous proposal regarding your wedding celebration. We recognize that our suggestions may have seemed intrusive, and we want to establish a more collaborative approach to planning this important family event. The careful phrasing of her opening statement reveals preparation that includes consultation with someone skilled in conflict resolution or diplomatic communication. Her use of phrases like collaborative approach and important family event represents strategic word choices designed to create appearance of compromise while maintaining underlying positions about appropriate social standards and family decision-making authority. Harrison supplements his wife's diplomatic introduction with more direct communication that reflects his preference for business-style negotiation over family relationship building. We have spoken with several of David's professional colleagues and our social circle about appropriate venues and service providers for weddings that maintain the standards expected in our community. We are prepared to make substantial financial contributions toward ensuring that this celebration reflects well on all families involved. Their revised approach demonstrates recognition that direct opposition to our wedding plans proved counterproductive, while revealing continued commitment to transforming our intimate community celebration into something that satisfies their social expectations and status concerns. The underlying message remains unchanged despite the modified presentation. They continue to believe that their social position grants them authority to determine appropriate standards for our wedding, and they assume that financial incentives will ultimately overcome our resistance to their preferences. My response to their proposal requires careful consideration of multiple factors beyond my personal feelings about their behavior and assumptions. David's ongoing relationship with his parents will continue throughout our marriage, and the patterns established during this conversation will influence all future family interactions. The broader Millfield community will observe how this conflict resolves, and our handling of family pressure will affect their understanding of our values and character. Margaret and Harrison, I appreciate your willingness to contribute financially to our wedding celebration, but your offer continues to miss the fundamental point about why we chose our current plans. This ceremony represents our values regarding community, authenticity, and the kind of relationships we want to build together. Modifying those plans to satisfy social expectations that we do not share would contradict the principles that guide our life together. The directness of my response creates visible discomfort for both Whitmore parents, who expected diplomatic accommodation rather than principled resistance to their renewed attempts at influence. Margaret's expression shifts from confident expectation to frustrated confusion, while Harrison's body language becomes more rigid as he processes the reality that their social position and financial resources do not grant them control over our decisions. Surely you understand, Margaret continues with increasing urgency, that David's professional reputation and family relationships will be affected by the impression created by this wedding. Our friends and colleagues will judge our entire family based on what they observe during this celebration. We have responsibilities to maintain certain standards that protect everyone's interests. Her appeal reveals the fundamental difference between their worldview and mine regarding the source of personal worth and social respect. Margaret assumes that external approval from their established social circle represents the primary measure of success and respectability. She cannot conceive of value systems that prioritize internal satisfaction and community contribution over status recognition and peer acceptance from privileged social groups. Margaret, the friends and colleagues whose approval depends on elaborate wedding celebrations and expensive displays are not people whose opinion should influence important personal decisions. The community members who will attend our wedding value authenticity and genuine relationship over social performance and material demonstration. Their respect is based on character and contribution rather than conformity to external expectations. This response articulates principles that challenge assumptions about social hierarchy and appropriate relationships that have guided Whitmore family behavior for generations. The suggestion that their social circle's approval is less important than community acceptance based on personal merit represents a fundamental rejection of values that have shaped their identity and self-perception throughout their lives. Harrison attempts to regain control of the conversation by introducing practical considerations that he believes will force acknowledgement of their position's reasonableness. Sarah, we are not asking you to abandon your principles or compromise your values. We are simply requesting that you consider the broader implications of your decisions for David's career advancement and our family's social standing. Surely some accommodation is possible that honors both your preferences and our legitimate concerns. His framing of their demands as legitimate concerns while characterizing our wedding plans as mere preferences reveals the entitlement that underlies their entire approach to this conflict. Harrison cannot conceive of circumstances where their social status and financial resources do not grant them decisive influence over family decisions, and he interprets our resistance as unreasonable stubbornness rather than principled commitment to autonomous decision-making. The conversation reaches an impasse as both parties recognize that fundamental differences in values and worldview prevent the compromise solution that David hoped might resolve family tensions. Margaret and Harrison leave the library with expressions that combine disappointment, frustration, and the beginning awareness that their traditional methods of influence have proven ineffective in this situation. The afternoon brings a phone call that will transform the dynamics of family conflict and community speculation about my background. Jennifer Valdez contacts me with updates about security arrangements for Governor Morrison's wedding attendants that reveal the sophistication of protocols required when high-level political figures participate in private social events. Sarah, the governor's security detail needs to coordinate with local law enforcement regarding venue access and crowd control measures. I will be contacting the Millfield Police Department directly, but I wanted you to be aware that these arrangements may generate additional community interest in your wedding celebration. The conversation that follows covers logistical requirements that would seem routine to someone familiar with executive protection procedures but will astound anyone who assumes that wedding security involves nothing more complex than designating parking areas and managing gift tables. Transportation coordination, communication protocols, and emergency response procedures are discussed with the professional efficiency that characterizes interactions between experienced security professionals. Chief Robert Patterson of the Millfield Police Department calls within an hour to discuss security coordination with undisguised amazement at the responsibilities suddenly assigned to his small department. Sarah, I have to admit that in 26 years of law enforcement in this town, I never expected to coordinate executive protection for a wedding reception. The state security team will handle most protocols, but they need our assistance with local logistics and community management. Chief Patterson's bewilderment reflects the broader community reaction as residents begin to comprehend that their quiet librarian maintains relationships that extend far beyond anything their previous experience prepared them to understand. The transformation of a simple backyard wedding into an event requiring state-level security coordination creates cognitive dissonance that forces reconsideration of assumptions about social hierarchy and community roles. Word of these security arrangements spreads through Millfield with the remarkable speed that characterizes information transmission in small communities, where everyone knows everyone, and unusual developments become immediate topics of conversation. By evening, most residents have heard varying versions of the story that their librarian's wedding will be attended by the governor herself, though speculation about the nature of our relationship varies widely based on individual imagination and social experience. The revelation creates a ripple effect that extends beyond mere curiosity about my background to broader questions about the assumptions that guide community social dynamics. Residents who accepted their librarian based on present contributions and professional competence now discover that my previous accomplishments and current connections exceed anything their limited exposure to state-level politics prepared them to comprehend. David arrives at my apartment that evening with an expression that combines excitement, concern, and dawning appreciation for the transformation that our wedding celebration will create in family and community relationships. His parents' reaction to news about Governor Morrison's attendance, conveyed through a tense phone conversation, revealed both their shock at discovering their completely incorrect assessment of my social connections and their growing anxiety about the public humiliation they will experience when their condescension is exposed. Sarah, my mother called 3 times this afternoon, David reports, with a mixture of amusement and worry. First, to demand an explanation about how you know the governor personally, then to suggest that we postpone the wedding until she can arrange appropriate social preparation, and finally to ask whether there might be other aspects of your background that the family should understand before the ceremony. Margaret Whitmore's frantic responses to discovering her misjudgment reveal the depth of social anxiety that drives her opposition to our marriage. Her entire sense of family status and personal identity depends on maintaining control over social situations and ensuring that family behavior meets the standards expected by her established peer group. The prospect of attending a wedding where she will be socially overshadowed by her son's bride represents a humiliation that challenges fundamental assumptions about social hierarchy and family relationships. The evening concludes with quiet reflection on the transformation that will occur when our wedding celebration forces all participants to confront the difference between appearance and substance, between social position and personal accomplishment, between prejudice and understanding. The Whitmore family's mockery of our embarrassing little backyard wedding will transform into something far more complex when they discover that their judgment was based on ignorance rather than insight. The foundation has been established for revelations that will educate everyone involved about the dangers of judging others based on superficial criteria, and the importance of recognizing that true worth cannot be determined through external measures of status and material success. The morning of Tuesday, October 15th, brings the first tangible evidence that our wedding celebration will extend far beyond the intimate community gathering originally envisioned. A black sedan with government license plates arrives at the Millfield Police Department at precisely 9 o'clock, carrying advanced security personnel whose professional bearing and sophisticated communication equipment immediately distinguish them from typical visitors to our small town. Chief Robert Patterson observes their arrival from his office window with the mixture of professional curiosity and practical concern that characterizes experienced law enforcement officers encountering situations beyond their routine preparation. The transformation of wedding security coordination from simple crowd management to executive protection protocols represents a complexity that few small-town departments ever experience, requiring rapid adaptation and learning under circumstances that permit no margin for error. The security team's leader, Agent Catherine Reynolds, brings credentials and experience that reflect the seriousness with which Governor Morrison's office approaches protective responsibilities. Her briefing with Chief Patterson covers threat assessment procedures, communication protocols, and contingency planning that assumes potential complications far more sophisticated than anything Millfield has previously confronted. The professional competence she demonstrates while explaining these requirements provides reassurance about the security arrangements while highlighting the extraordinary nature of circumstances that necessitate such measures. Chief Patterson, we appreciate your department's cooperation in coordinating these security arrangements. Agent Reynolds states with the diplomatic courtesy that characterizes federal-local law enforcement cooperation. Governor Morrison specifically requested that we work closely with your team to ensure that security measures enhance, rather than disrupt, the personal nature of this celebration. She values her friendship with Ms. Hayes tremendously and wants nothing to interfere with what should be a joyful family occasion. The emphasis Agent Reynolds places on the personal relationship between Governor Morrison and myself creates additional questions for Chief Patterson, whose understanding of my background continues to require significant revision as new information emerges. The suggestion that executive protection arrangements are being modified to accommodate friendship considerations rather than standard political protocols indicates a level of personal connection that extends far beyond professional courtesy or political obligation. Word of the security team's arrival spreads through Millfield with characteristic small-town efficiency, generating conversations that reveal the community's evolving understanding of their librarian's background and connections. Mrs. Henderson at the post office fields numerous inquiries about the nature of my relationship with state government, while local business owners speculate about the economic impact of hosting a gubernatorial visit during what many had assumed would be a simple community wedding celebration. The Millfield General Store experiences unprecedented demand for newspapers and magazines, as residents seek information about Governor Morrison's current activities and political positions. Owner Frank Morrison, no relation to the governor despite sharing her surname, reports that customers are approaching news consumption with the focused attention typically reserved for local sports championships or municipal election results. "I have never seen people so interested in state politics," Frank observes, while restocking periodicals that normally require weeks to sell completely. "Everyone wants to understand who exactly Sarah Hayes is," and how she came to know the most powerful person in state government well enough to warrant this kind of personal attention. The economic activity generated by curiosity about my background demonstrates the broader community impact of individual relationships and personal connections that extend beyond local boundaries. Local businesses benefit from increased traffic as residents seek information and services related to understanding the political and social implications of the governor's wedding attendance, while regional media outlets begin investigating story possibilities related to the intersection of small-town life and state-level politics. The afternoon brings a phone call that provides additional context for understanding the scope of my professional relationships and the reasons why Governor Morrison values our friendship sufficiently to adjust her schedule for wedding attendance. Colonel James Mitchell, director of the State Emergency Management Agency, contacts me directly to coordinate security considerations that extend beyond standard executive protection to include federal agency involvement in ensuring comprehensive coverage of potential threats. Sarah, I hope you understand that Governor Morrison's attendance at your wedding reflects the deep respect she holds for your service and the friendship you developed during some very challenging times. Colonel Mitchell states with the measured tone that characterizes military professionals discussing classified or sensitive matters. Her personal security team will coordinate with federal agencies to ensure that nothing disrupts what should be a celebration of your happiness and David's commitment to building a life together. The conversation reveals that my previous professional responsibilities included coordination with federal agencies during crisis situations that required multi-jurisdictional responses to threats affecting regional security and civilian safety. The ongoing relationships maintained with military and emergency management personnel reflect both the significance of my contributions during those situations and the respect I earned through performance under extreme pressure and challenging circumstances. Colonel Mitchell's explanation of security arrangements also indicates that Governor Morrison's decision to attend my wedding was made despite recommendations from political advisors who suggested that private social engagements create unnecessary security complications and potential political liabilities. Her willingness to override those concerns for personal relationship considerations demonstrates both the strength of our friendship and her commitment to maintaining connections with individuals who contributed meaningfully to public service efforts. David arrives at the library during the afternoon to discuss the expanding implications of our wedding celebration and the community response to discovering the scope of my professional background and current relationships. His expression combines excitement about the honor represented by gubernatorial attendance with concern about family dynamics and the potential for social complications that neither of us originally anticipated. Sarah, my parents are in complete shock about Governor Morrison's attendance, and their reaction is creating tensions that I did not expect. David reports with obvious worry about family relationships and future harmony. My mother spent the morning calling friends to verify that this is actually happening, while my father has been researching your background through business contacts who might have information about state government personnel and emergency management operations. The Whitmore family's frantic investigation of my professional history represents their attempt to reconcile their assessment of my social status with evidence that contradicts fundamental assumptions about appropriate relationships and family connections. Margaret's verification efforts through her social network reflect both her disbelief about the situation and her need to understand how such a significant misjudgment occurred, despite what she considered careful evaluation of my background and suitability. Harrison's business-oriented research approach demonstrates his practical recognition that accurate information about my professional accomplishments and current relationships is necessary for adjusting family strategies and expectations regarding our marriage. His inquiries through commercial and political contacts reveal growing appreciation for the complexity of my background and the sophistication of capabilities that my quiet library position had effectively concealed from casual observation. They are beginning to understand that their opposition to our marriage was based on completely incorrect assumptions about my background and social connections. I explained to David while reviewing the final details of our wedding arrangements. The education they are receiving will extend far beyond questions of social status to fundamental issues of character judgment and the dangers of prejudicial assessment based on superficial criteria. David's response reflects both relief about the validation of his choice to marry me despite family pressure and concern about the humiliation his parents will experience when their misjudgment becomes publicly apparent during our wedding celebration. His loyalty to his family creates internal conflict between satisfaction that their prejudices have been proven wrong and genuine worry about their emotional well-being when forced to confront the extent of their error. The evening brings additional phone calls from professional colleagues and personal friends who have learned about our wedding through official channels and want to confirm their attendance at what has evolved from intimate community celebration to significant social and political event. The expansion of our guest list to include individuals from my previous professional network creates logistical complications while providing opportunities for community members to interact with state and federal personnel whose presence would normally require official occasions or emergency circumstances. Dr. Maria Santos, former director of the State Public Health Emergency Response Division, calls to express both congratulations about our marriage and appreciation for the invitation to participate in this important personal milestone. Her friendship with me developed through coordination of medical and social service responses during the Hurricane Marina crisis, where her expertise in emergency public health measures proved essential for preventing disease outbreaks and managing displaced populations. Sarah, I am delighted that you have found happiness with someone who appreciates your character and capabilities. Dr. Santos states with the warmth that characterizes our personal relationship despite its origins in professional crisis management. Your contributions during the hurricane response probably saved hundreds of lives through proper coordination of medical resources and evacuation procedures. The fact that you have chosen to build a new life in community service reflects the values that made you such an effective emergency management professional. Her comments provide additional context for understanding both the nature of my previous responsibilities and the reasons why colleagues from that period maintain personal relationships despite my transition to small-town library administration. The skills required for effective emergency management, including rapid decision-making under pressure, resource coordination across multiple agencies, and communication with diverse stakeholder groups, prove directly transferable to community service and program administration in ways that enhanced my effectiveness while maintaining the anonymity I valued. The phone call also reveals that news of our wedding has circulated through professional networks that extend beyond state government to include federal agencies and military commands involved in regional security and emergency preparedness. The attendance of individuals from these organizations will provide Millfield residents with unprecedented exposure to the scope and complexity of government operations that normally remain invisible to civilian populations except during crisis situations. Judge Patricia Williams, who presided over legal proceedings related to Hurricane Marina recovery efforts, contacts me personally to express congratulations and confirm her intention to attend our ceremony despite the scheduling complications created by ongoing court responsibilities. Her participation represents both personal friendship and professional respect for contributions I made during legal proceedings that established precedents for emergency response coordination and resource allocation during natural disasters. Your testimony during the recovery litigation was instrumental in establishing legal frameworks that now protect communities throughout the region during emergency situations. Judge Williams notes with the precision that characterizes judicial communication on important matters. The fact that you chose to continue public service through community library administration demonstrates commitment to civic engagement that deserves recognition and support. The conversation provides insight into legal aspects of my previous professional responsibilities that involved testimony in federal proceedings related to emergency response effectiveness and interagency coordination during crisis situations. The expertise I demonstrated during those proceedings contributed to legal precedents that continue to influence emergency management policy and procedure development throughout the region, creating lasting impact that extends far beyond individual cases or immediate crisis resolution. The expanding recognition of my professional background creates additional complications for wedding planning, while providing validation of choices made during my transition from state-level emergency management to community service. The attendance of colleagues who understand the significance of my previous contributions will provide context for community members seeking to understand how their quiet librarian developed capabilities that enabled effective coordination of complex programs and successful management of challenging situations. Chief Patterson calls during the evening to provide updates about security coordination and community preparations for accommodating the expanded wedding celebration. His report indicates that Millfield residents are responding to the situation with characteristic small-town adaptability and genuine excitement about hosting visitors whose presence represents unprecedented recognition for their community. Sarah, I have to say that this town has never experienced anything quite like the preparations required for hosting a gubernatorial visit. Chief Patterson observes with obvious pride about his department's rapid adaptation to sophisticated security requirements. The professionalism demonstrated by Governor Morrison's security team has been impressive, and their willingness to work cooperatively with local law enforcement reflects well on everyone involved. His comments reveal the broader community impact of individual relationships and professional connections that create opportunities for small towns to interact with state and federal personnel under positive circumstances rather than emergency situations. The wedding celebration will provide educational opportunities for residents to observe government operations and develop understanding of public service careers that extend beyond local municipal positions. The day concludes with quiet reflection on the transformation that our wedding celebration will create in community understanding of individual potential and the possibilities that exist for building meaningful careers through public service and civic engagement. The revelation of my professional background will demonstrate that true accomplishment often develops through dedication to service rather than pursuit of recognition, and that the most significant contributions frequently occur without public awareness or acknowledgement. The foundation has been established for dramatic revelations that will transform the Whitmore family's mockery into profound embarrassment, while providing educational opportunities for community members to understand that individual worth cannot be determined through superficial assessment or social prejudice. The ceremony that they dismissed as an embarrassing little backyard wedding will become a demonstration of authentic relationships and genuine accomplishment that transcends traditional measures of status and social position. The morning of Wednesday, October 16th, dawns with unseasonable warmth that transforms the New England landscape into a canvas of brilliant autumn colors. The maple trees surrounding my modest apartment display the crimson and gold foliage that attracts tourists from urban centers seeking authentic seasonal beauty, though today their splendor serves as backdrop for conversations that will fundamentally alter family relationships and community dynamics. Margaret Whitmore arrives at my apartment building at precisely 10 o'clock, her luxury sedan appearing incongruous against the practical architecture of downtown Millfield's commercial district. Her decision to request this private meeting represents unprecedented initiative in direct communication, departing from her established pattern of managing family conflicts through intermediaries and social pressure. The carefully controlled expression she maintains while ascending the narrow staircase to my second-floor residence reveals internal struggle between pride and pragmatic recognition that circumstances require adaptation of established strategies. Her appearance reflects meticulous attention to details that communicate social status and personal refinement, from the tailored suit that bears discreet designer signatures to the understated jewelry that signals sophisticated taste and substantial financial resources. The effort invested in her presentation demonstrates both respect for the seriousness of our conversation and determination to maintain dignity despite the uncomfortable necessity of acknowledging previous misjudgments about my background and social connections. Sarah, I hope you will forgive the presumption of this unannounced visit, but recent developments regarding your wedding celebration have created circumstances that require direct discussion between us. Margaret begins with the measured tone she employs when addressing situations that challenge her established comfort zone while demanding diplomatic navigation of sensitive topics. The formal language she chooses reflects careful preparation for this conversation, including consultation with individuals experienced in conflict resolution or crisis communication. Her acknowledgement that my wedding arrangements have "created circumstances," rather than admitting that her own assumptions proved incorrect, demonstrates the linguistic precision she uses to maintain face while adjusting positions that have become untenable. The small living room that serves as the setting for our discussion contains furnishings that tell stories about values and priorities that Margaret is only beginning to understand. The antique writing desk inherited from my grandmother occupies the place of honor beneath windows that frame views of the community I have chosen to serve. Photographs displayed throughout the space document relationships and experiences that span contexts far beyond anything she previously imagined possible for someone she had dismissed as socially unsuitable. Her eyes linger on a framed photograph showing me in formal dress uniform alongside Governor Morrison and several other officials during what appears to be a significant ceremonial occasion. The military bearing evident in my posture and the prestigious nature of the setting create cognitive dissonance that forces reconsideration of assumptions about my professional background and current capabilities. Margaret, please have a seat and tell me what aspects of our wedding arrangements are causing you concern. I respond with the diplomatic courtesy that acknowledges her initiative in seeking direct communication while establishing expectations for respectful dialogue based on mutual recognition of adult autonomy and decision-making authority. The conversation that unfolds reveals the extent to which recent revelations about my background have disrupted the Whitmore family's understanding of social hierarchy and appropriate relationships. Margaret's investigation through her established social network has produced information that contradicts fundamental beliefs about status, accomplishment, and the criteria that determine suitable family connections. Through discretionary inquiries among our political and business associates, Harrison and I have learned that your previous professional responsibilities included coordination with federal agencies and military commands during emergency situations of considerable magnitude and complexity. Margaret states with visible difficulty in reconciling this information with her previous assessment of my social status and family background. Her careful choice of phrases like discretionary inquiries and professional responsibilities demonstrates attempts to maintain dignity, while acknowledging that her research revealed expertise and accomplishments that extend far beyond anything she had considered possible. The formal language she employs creates emotional distance from the embarrassing reality that her confident judgments were based on ignorance, rather than accurate evaluation. The individuals we consulted spoke of your contributions during crisis situations with respect that suggests capabilities and achievements of considerable significance to public welfare and regional security. She continues with growing recognition that her opposition to our marriage was predicated on completely incorrect assumptions about my qualifications and social connections. The conversation provides opportunities to explain aspects of my background that illuminate the values and experiences that shaped my transition from state-level emergency management to community library administration. The choice to pursue meaningful service, rather than continued advancement through government hierarchy, reflects principles that Margaret is struggling to understand within her established framework of social mobility and appropriate career progression. My decision to accept the librarian position in Millfield represented conscious choices about the kind of life I wanted to build and the type of community engagement that provides personal satisfaction and professional fulfillment. I explain while observing her attempts to integrate this information with preconceived notions about career ambition and social advancement. The skills I acquired through emergency management work, including coordination of complex programs and communication with diverse stakeholder groups, transfer directly to community service in ways that enhance effectiveness while providing opportunities to contribute meaningfully to the daily lives of residents who benefit from improved library services and educational programs. This explanation challenges Margaret's assumptions about career trajectory and professional motivation by suggesting that movement from prestigious government positions to small-town public service might represent advancement rather than retreat, purposeful choice rather than The concept that individual fulfillment might derive from community contribution rather than social recognition contradicts beliefs that have guided her understanding of appropriate life goals and personal achievement. Her response reveals the fundamental difficulty she experiences in adjusting worldview assumptions that have shaped family identity and social relationships throughout her adult life. The suggestion that her son chose to marry someone whose professional accomplishments exceed her own social circle's typical achievements creates internal conflict between pride in his judgment and embarrassment about her public opposition to their relationship. Sarah, I must acknowledge that Harrison and I may have made incorrect assumptions about your background and the appropriateness of your marriage to David. Margaret admits with visible effort to maintain composure while confronting the reality of significant misjudgment that has created family conflict and potential social embarrassment. Our concerns about social compatibility and family status were based on information that proved incomplete and assessments that failed to recognize the full scope of your professional experience and current capabilities. This admission represents considerable personal growth for Margaret, whose established pattern of behavior typically involves maintaining positions despite contradictory evidence, rather than acknowledging error and adjusting perspectives based on new information. Her willingness to explicitly recognize misjudgment demonstrates both the compelling nature of evidence about my background and her pragmatic understanding that continued opposition would create additional embarrassment during our wedding celebration. The conversation shifts toward discussion of practical arrangements for the wedding ceremony and the family dynamics that will be observed by distinguished guests, whose presence will require the Whitmore family to demonstrate appropriate social grace and hospitality. Margaret's growing appreciation for the significance of Governor Morrison's attendance creates anxiety about family behavior and community perceptions during what has evolved from simple social occasion to significant political and social event. The presence of Governor Morrison and other state officials at your wedding ceremony will create circumstances that require careful attention to appropriate protocol and social expectations. Margaret observes with the practical concern that characterizes her approach to managing family reputation and social standing within established community hierarchies. Harrison and I want to ensure that our behavior reflects well on David and demonstrates proper appreciation for the honor represented by such distinguished attendance at what we now understand to be a celebration of considerable significance beyond our family circle. Her comments reveal both genuine desire to support our marriage and continued preoccupation with social appearances and external validation that reflects established priorities regarding family reputation and community standing. The challenge she faces involves adapting established social strategies to circumstances that extend far beyond her previous experience with family events and community celebrations. My response to her concerns emphasizes themes of authenticity and genuine relationship building that have guided our wedding planning and will continue to shape our approach to family interactions following the ceremony. The values that attracted David to me and sustained our relationship through family opposition provide foundation for constructive engagement with his parents based on mutual respect rather than social hierarchy or conditional acceptance. Margaret, the most important consideration for our wedding celebration is that all participants feel welcome to contribute to an atmosphere of joy and support for our commitment to building a life together based on shared values and mutual respect. I explain while providing guidance about appropriate expectations and behavior during the ceremony and reception. Governor Morrison and our other guests will appreciate genuine warmth and authentic hospitality rather than formal protocol or elaborate social performance. The relationships that matter most are built on character and sincerity rather than adherence to external expectations or artificial standards of appropriate behavior. This guidance challenges Margaret to consider relationship-building approaches that prioritize substance over appearance, while providing reassurance that social success at our wedding will depend on human connection rather than technical compliance with complex protocol requirements. The suggestion that distinguished guests will value authenticity over artificial formality contradicts her established beliefs about appropriate behavior in the presence of important people. The conversation concludes with Margaret's commitment to discuss our exchange with Harrison and coordinate family behavior that demonstrates support for our marriage and appreciation for the honor represented by gubernatorial attendance. Her willingness to modify established attitudes and adjust family strategies represents significant personal growth that creates possibilities for improved relationships following the wedding ceremony. The afternoon brings additional evidence of community excitement about hosting distinguished visitors and the economic benefits generated by increased attention to Millfield as a destination for state-level political and social activities. Local business owners report unprecedented demand for services ranging from catering assistance to transportation coordination, as residents seek opportunities to contribute to the success of our wedding celebration while benefiting from increased commercial activity. The Millfield Inn, a bed and breakfast establishment that typically operates at modest capacity during autumn months, has received inquiries about accommodations from out-of-town guests planning to attend our wedding ceremony. Owner Rebecca Martinez reports that the attention generated by gubernatorial attendance has produced booking requests that extend beyond the wedding weekend to include visitors interested in exploring small-town New England during peak foliage season. This wedding has created more interest in Millfield than any single event in recent memory. Rebecca observes while reviewing reservation requests that demonstrate the broader economic impact of individual relationships and personal connections that extend beyond local boundaries. The visitors who come for the ceremony will discover the charm and character of our community, potentially creating lasting relationships and repeat business that benefits everyone. Her comments illustrate the multiplicative effects of personal networking and professional relationships that create opportunities for entire communities to benefit from individual accomplishments and social connections. The wedding celebration will provide marketing exposure and economic development opportunities that small towns rarely experience, demonstrating how individual success can contribute to collective prosperity when properly leveraged. David arrives during the evening with reports about additional responses from his parents, Social circle, as word spreads through established networks about the true nature of my background and the significance of our wedding celebration. The revelation that their confident assessment of my unsuitability was based on complete ignorance has created conversations throughout their community about the dangers of prejudicial judgment and the importance of reserving evaluation until complete information becomes available. Several of my parents' friends have contacted them privately to acknowledge that they shared concerns about our marriage based on similar assumptions about your background and social status. David reports with obvious relief about the vindication of his choice, despite family and social pressure. The discovery that their collective judgment was so thoroughly incorrect has created considerable embarrassment and reflection about the criteria they use for evaluating relationships and social appropriateness. Quote, "The social education occurring within the Whitmore family's established circle extends beyond individual embarrassment to broader reconsideration of assumptions about class, status, and the relationship between appearance and substance. The revelation that someone they collectively dismissed as socially inappropriate possesses professional accomplishments that exceed their own typical achievements forces confrontation with prejudices that have guided social behavior and family decision-making throughout their adult lives." The evening concludes with final preparations for wedding arrangements that have evolved from intimate community celebration to significant social and political event requiring coordination between multiple stakeholders and careful attention to logistics that ensure successful accommodation of distinguished guests, while maintaining the personal character that originally attracted David and me to simple backyard ceremony celebration. The transformation of our wedding plans demonstrates how individual relationships and professional connections create ripple effects that extend far beyond immediate participants to influence entire communities and social networks. The ceremony that Margaret Whitmore once dismissed as an embarrassing little backyard wedding has become an occasion that will provide educational opportunities about service, accomplishment, and the difference between superficial social status and genuine personal achievement. The foundation has been established for revelations that will complete the Whitmore family's education about the dangers of judging others based on incomplete information and social prejudices, while providing community members with unprecedented opportunities to observe authentic leadership and public service excellence in action. The morning of Friday, October 18th arrives with crystalline clarity that transforms the New England landscape into a tableau of natural perfection. The atmospheric conditions create ideal circumstances for outdoor celebration, while providing metaphorical resonance for the clarity that will emerge when long-held assumptions encounter undeniable truth. The approaching weekend will bring revelations that fundamentally alter family dynamics and community understanding of individual worth and social value. The Millfield Community Library opens to unprecedented activity as residents seek final opportunities to interact with their librarian, before the wedding ceremony transforms her from quiet community servant into recognized figure of state-level significance. The morning patrons include individuals who rarely utilize library services but want to express support for someone whose dedication to community welfare has benefited their families and neighbors in ways both visible and unacknowledged. Mrs. Eleanor Hartwell arrives with a handwritten card expressing gratitude for patient computer instruction that enabled her to maintain meaningful contact with distant grandchildren during challenging family circumstances. Her gesture represents hundreds of similar interactions where individual attention and professional expertise created positive outcomes that extend far beyond routine library transactions. Sarah, dear, I wanted you to know that your kindness and skill in teaching an old woman new technologies has brought joy and connection to my life that I never expected to experience. She states with emotional sincerity that reflects genuine appreciation for service that transcends professional obligation to become personal ministry. The confidence I gained through your patient instruction has enabled me to participate in family conversations and share experiences with grandchildren who live too far away for regular visits. Your wedding celebration represents well-deserved recognition of someone who has quietly transformed many lives through dedication and expertise. Her comments exemplify the community impact created through consistent excellence in public service, where individual interactions accumulate into collective improvement of quality of life and social cohesion. The recognition she expresses reflects broader community sentiment about my contributions. while providing context for understanding why residents take personal pride in hosting distinguished visitors who honor their librarian through wedding attendance. The morning also brings final coordination calls from security personnel and protocol specialists, who ensure that gubernatorial attendance enhances rather than disrupts the personal character of our celebration. Agent Catherine Reynolds provides updates about logistical arrangements that demonstrate sophisticated planning while maintaining sensitivity to community dynamics and family relationships. Ms. Hayes, Governor Morrison specifically requested that security measures remain as unobtrusive as possible to preserve the intimate atmosphere of your wedding ceremony. Agent Reynolds reports with professional courtesy that reflects understanding of the balance required between protection requirements and personal celebration needs. Her security detail has extensive experience in managing executive attendance at private social functions, and we are committed to ensuring that protocol considerations enhance rather than overshadow what should be a joyful family occasion focused on your happiness and commitment to building a life with Mr. Whitmore. The conversation reveals additional aspects of my relationship with Governor Morrison that illuminate both the personal friendship we maintain and her commitment to supporting individuals who contributed meaningfully to public service efforts during her tenure. Her willingness to adjust official scheduling and security protocols to attend personal celebrations demonstrates values that prioritize genuine relationships over political convenience or social obligation. The afternoon brings unexpected developments that provide additional context for understanding the scope of professional relationships and recognition that extend beyond state boundaries to include federal agencies and national organizations involved in emergency management and homeland security coordination. A phone call from Washington, D.C. carries implications that will transform our wedding celebration from regional political event into occasion of national significance. Director Susan Martinez of the Federal Emergency Management Agency contacts me personally to express congratulations about our marriage and to convey appreciation for contributions I made during Hurricane Marina response coordination that established precedents for federal-state cooperation during natural disasters. Her call represents both personal friendship and professional recognition of expertise that continues to influence emergency management policy development throughout the nation. Sarah, your leadership during the Hurricane Marina crisis demonstrated coordination capabilities and strategic thinking that probably saved thousands of lives through effective resource allocation and interagency communication. Director Martinez states with the measured tone that characterizes senior federal officials discussing classified or sensitive matters. The protocols you developed for federal-state information sharing during that emergency have been adopted as standard procedures throughout our regional operations, creating lasting improvements in our ability to respond effectively to natural disasters and other crisis situations that threaten civilian populations. Her recognition provides additional evidence of accomplishments that extend far beyond anything the Whitmore family or Millfield community previously understood about my professional background and current capabilities. The suggestion that my contributions influenced national emergency management policy creates perspective for evaluating the significance of choosing community library service over continued government career advancement. Director Martinez also indicates that several FEMA colleagues plan to attend our wedding ceremony, having learned about the celebration through professional networks that maintain contact with individuals who contributed significantly to agency operations and policy development. Their attendance will provide additional validation of my professional reputation, while creating opportunities for community members to interact with federal personnel whose presence would normally require emergency circumstances or official business occasions. The expansion of our guest list to include federal officials transforms logistical planning while providing educational opportunities for Millfield residents to observe government operations and develop understanding of public service careers that extend beyond local municipal positions. The ceremony will demonstrate connections between individual accomplishment and national service that most small communities never witness directly. David arrives during the late afternoon with reports about his parents, final preparations for wedding attendance, and their continued adjustment to revelations about my background that have required fundamental reconsideration of assumptions about social hierarchy and appropriate family relationships. Margaret and Harrison Whitmore have spent recent days consulting with social advisors and protocol specialists to ensure appropriate behavior during an occasion that extends far beyond their previous experience with family celebrations. My mother has purchased entirely new attire for the wedding ceremony, including consultation with fashion specialists who understand appropriate dress codes for occasions attended by high-ranking government officials. David reports with mixture of amusement and concern about family dynamics and the psychological pressure his parents experience when confronting the magnitude of their misjudgment. She also arranged for private instruction in governmental protocol and social expectations for interacting with distinguished guests, whose presence requires different etiquette standards than typical family social occasions. The effort she has invested in preparation demonstrates both respect for the significance of your background and anxiety about avoiding additional embarrassment through inappropriate behavior. Margaret's elaborate preparations reveal the extent to which recent revelations have disrupted her confidence in social situations and created uncertainty about established patterns of behavior that proved inadequate for circumstances extending beyond her established comfort zone. Her willingness to seek professional guidance represents significant personal growth while acknowledging the limitations of her previous understanding about appropriate social standards and relationship evaluation criteria. The evening brings the rehearsal gathering that serves as final preparation for wedding ceremony coordination and provides initial opportunities for community members to interact with distinguished guests, whose presence demonstrates the scope of my professional relationships and current social connections. The informal atmosphere encourages authentic conversation while allowing evaluation of family dynamics and community response to circumstances that transcend typical small-town social occasions. Governor Morrison arrives precisely at the scheduled time, accompanied by her personal aide and minimal security presence that maintains necessary protection while respecting the private character of family preparation activities. Her immediate warmth and genuine interest in meeting David and engaging with community members demonstrates personal qualities that extend beyond political persona to include authentic concern for individual relationships and local community welfare. David, I am delighted to meet someone who recognizes Sarah's exceptional character and capabilities, Governor Morrison states during their initial conversation, providing validation of our relationship while expressing personal appreciation for friendship that has enriched her understanding of public service and community engagement. Sarah's contributions during some very challenging circumstances in our state's recent history reflect the kind of dedication and expertise that public service requires at its highest levels. Your recognition of her worth and your commitment to building a life together demonstrates judgment that honors both your character and her remarkable accomplishments. Her comments provide authoritative validation of my professional reputation, while offering David recognition for choosing to marry someone whose capabilities extend far beyond anything his family's initial assessment suggested possible. The governor's personal endorsement carries political and social weight that transforms family dynamics by providing external confirmation of decisions that were previously questioned or opposed. The rehearsal dinner conversation reveals additional dimensions of my professional background through stories shared by colleagues who attended crisis management operations and policy development initiatives that shaped regional preparedness capabilities during challenging periods of natural disasters and security threats. Their recognition provides community members with unprecedented insight into government operations while demonstrating connections between individual excellence and collective security. Colonel James Mitchell shares accounts of emergency coordination during multiple crisis situations that required rapid decision-making and resource allocation under circumstances where communication failures or procedural delays could have resulted in significant harm to civilian populations. His descriptions of my contributions provide context for understanding capabilities that transfer directly to community service, while explaining why state officials maintain personal relationships despite my transition to small-town library administration. Sarah's ability to coordinate complex operations involving multiple agencies and diverse stakeholder groups under extreme time pressure made the difference between successful crisis resolution and potential catastrophic outcomes during several emergency situations. Colonel Mitchell explains to attentive community members who are discovering new perspectives on their librarian's background and expertise. The leadership she demonstrated during those circumstances reflects both technical competence and personal character that enabled effective collaboration between organizations that typically struggle with communication and coordination challenges during stressful situations. Dr. Maria Santos contributes additional recognition of my contributions to public health emergency response during Hurricane Marina, where coordination of medical resources and evacuation procedures prevented disease outbreaks and managed displaced populations effectively despite infrastructure damage and communication disruptions that complicated standard response protocols. The protocols Sarah developed for maintaining medical care continuity during emergency relocations have been adopted throughout our regional health system, creating improvements in disaster preparedness that benefit communities throughout the state. Dr. Santos explains while providing community members with understanding of accomplishments that extend beyond immediate crisis resolution to include lasting policy improvements. The gathering also provides opportunities for Margaret and Harrison Whitmore to interact directly with individuals whose professional stature and personal character demonstrate the caliber of people who consider me worthy of friendship and professional respect. Their conversations with Governor Morrison, federal officials, and military personnel provide education about evaluation criteria that prioritize character and capability over superficial social markers or family background considerations. Margaret's interaction with Governor Morrison reveals both her growing appreciation for my professional accomplishments and continued adjustment to circumstances that require significant modification of established social strategies and relationship evaluation approaches. Her careful attention to appropriate protocol while engaging in genuine conversation demonstrates effort to balance respect for distinguished guests with authentic interest in understanding their relationships with her future daughter-in-law. Governor Morrison, I must acknowledge that Harrison and I initially had concerns about David's choice to marry someone whose background we did not fully understand. Margaret admits with visible effort to maintain composure while confronting uncomfortable truth about prejudicial assumptions and their consequences for family relationships. Recent revelations about Sarah's professional accomplishments and the respect she commands among individuals of your stature have provided education about the limitations of our previous assessment methods and the importance of reserving judgment until complete information becomes available. Governor Morrison's response demonstrates both diplomatic skill and genuine warmth, while providing guidance about relationship evaluation that emphasizes character assessment over social positioning or external validation concerns. Her advice reflects experience with political and personal relationships that require sophisticated understanding of individual motivation and capability assessment. Margaret, Sarah represents the kind of public servant who chooses meaningful contribution over personal recognition, community engagement over career advancement, and authentic relationship over social convenience. Governor Morrison explains with the authority that comes from direct observation of character under challenging circumstances. Your son has chosen to marry someone whose values and capabilities will enhance every aspect of his life and contribute meaningfully to any community where they choose to build their future together. The wedding celebration tomorrow will demonstrate the kind of person Sarah truly is and the respect she has earned through excellence in service to others. The evening concludes with anticipation for revelations that will complete the transformation of family understanding and community appreciation, while providing final education about the difference between appearance and substance, between social judgment and character assessment, between prejudice and recognition of genuine worth. The ceremony that Margaret Whitmore once dismissed as embarrassing will become demonstration of authentic accomplishment and meaningful relationship that transcends traditional measures of social status and family appropriateness. The morning of Saturday, October 19th arrives with the pristine clarity that autumn reserves for its most significant moments. The atmospheric conditions create perfect circumstances for outdoor celebration, while the golden light filtering through centuries-old maple trees provides natural illumination that transforms ordinary spaces into venues of extraordinary beauty. The day that will forever alter perceptions and relationships begins with the quiet dignity that characterizes all meaningful transformations. At precisely 6 o'clock, the coordinated arrival of security personnel and advance teams begins the careful orchestration required when private celebration intersects with executive protection protocols. Agent Catherine Reynolds supervises deployment of resources that remain discreetly positioned throughout the neighborhood, ensuring comprehensive coverage while maintaining the residential character that preserves the intimate atmosphere David and I envisioned for our wedding ceremony. The early morning activity generates considerable interest among residents who observe the professional competence demonstrated by federal and state security teams working cooperatively with local law enforcement. Chief Robert Patterson coordinates municipal support activities with evident pride in his department's ability to adapt quickly to requirements that extend far beyond routine small-town policing responsibilities. The coordination demonstrates effective collaboration between different levels of government, while providing community members with unprecedented opportunities to observe professional public service operations under positive circumstances rather than emergency situations. The wedding celebration creates educational experiences that illuminate career possibilities and service excellence that most residents never witness directly. Mrs. Dorothy Henderson arrives at her post office before dawn to ensure that wedding day mail delivery proceeds smoothly despite increased activity and security considerations throughout the downtown area. Her dedication to maintaining normal community services during extraordinary circumstances exemplifies the professional commitment that characterizes public servants at all levels of government and community organization. The morning brings the arrival of out-of-town guests whose presence validates the scope of my professional relationships while providing Millfield residents with exposure to individuals whose careers demonstrate the possibilities that exist for meaningful public service and civic engagement. Each arrival adds depth to the community's understanding of accomplishment that transcends local boundaries while remaining grounded in values of service and contribution to collective welfare. Dr. Maria Santos arrives accompanied by her husband, Colonel Eduardo Santos, whose military service includes deployment to disaster zones, where coordination with civilian emergency management personnel proved essential for successful humanitarian operations. Their partnership exemplifies the collaborative relationships that develop when professional excellence creates mutual respect across organizational boundaries and jurisdictional limitations. Director Susan Martinez of FEMA travels from Washington with two senior colleagues whose attendance demonstrates federal recognition of contributions that continue to influence national emergency management policy and procedure development. Their presence validates professional accomplishments while providing community members with unprecedented access to individuals whose decisions affect millions of citizens during crisis situations. The expansion of our guest list to include federal officials creates opportunities for meaningful dialogue about public service careers and the relationship between individual excellence and collective security. These interactions will provide lasting value for community members seeking to understand government operations and career possibilities that extend beyond traditional local employment opportunities. Judge Patricia Williams arrives with her husband, retired Attorney General Thomas Williams, whose legal career included prosecution of cases involving government corruption and public trust violations. Their joint attendance reflects professional respect for integrity and character, while providing additional validation of my reputation among individuals whose responsibilities require sophisticated judgment about personal and professional credibility. The gathering demonstrates the network of relationships that develops when professional competence combines with personal character to create trust and respect among colleagues whose work affects thousands of lives and millions of dollars in public resources. These relationships endure beyond specific assignments or organizational changes, because they rest on foundation of demonstrated excellence under challenging circumstances. The morning also brings final preparations by the Whitmore family, whose elaborate arrangements reflect both genuine desire to demonstrate appropriate respect for distinguished guests and continued anxiety about social performance during circumstances that extend far beyond their previous experience with family celebrations. Margaret's extensive consultation with protocol specialists and fashion advisors represents significant investment in ensuring appropriate behavior during what has evolved from simple community gathering to occasion of regional political significance. Harrison Whitmore arrives at our ceremony venue wearing formal attire that reflects careful research about appropriate dress codes for occasions attended by high-ranking government officials. His obvious discomfort with circumstances requiring modification of established social strategies provides evidence of personal growth, as he confronts limitations of previous understanding about relationship evaluation and family decision-making criteria. Their preparation efforts demonstrate both respect for the significance of our wedding celebration and recognition that their initial opposition to our marriage was based on assumptions that proved fundamentally incorrect. The education they have received about my professional background continues to challenge established beliefs about social hierarchy and appropriate family relationships. David arrives at my apartment during the late morning to accompany me through final preparation activities and provide emotional support during what will become the most significant social occasion of our lives together. His calm confidence and genuine excitement about our marriage ceremony reflect both personal happiness and professional pride in choosing a life partner whose character and capabilities exceed anything his family initially understood or appreciated. Sarah, I want you to know that regardless of what happens today or who attends our ceremony, my commitment to you is based on who you are and what we mean to each other. David states with the sincerity that first attracted me and continues to sustain our relationship through family complications and social pressures. The recognition you receive from distinguished guests validates what I have always known about your character and accomplishments. But my love for you exists independently of external validation or professional achievement. Today represents celebration of our choice to build a life together based on shared values and mutual respect. His declaration provides reassurance about the foundation of our relationship, while acknowledging the broader implications of revelations that have transformed family dynamics and community understanding. The authenticity of his commitment demonstrates emotional maturity that qualifies him as genuine partner for navigating whatever challenges or opportunities may emerge from increased public attention and professional recognition. The conversation also provides opportunity for final reflection on the journey that brought me from state-level emergency management to small-town library administration, and from anonymous public servant to recognized figure whose professional accomplishments warrant gubernatorial attendance at personal celebrations. The transformation illustrates both individual growth and the possibilities that exist for creating meaningful impact through dedication to service excellence. As midday approaches, the systematic arrival of wedding guests begins the careful choreography required when private celebration accommodates security protocols, while maintaining the intimate atmosphere that reflects our values and relationship priorities. Each arrival demonstrates different aspects of my professional network, while providing community members with unprecedented exposure to individuals whose careers exemplify excellence in public service. Governor Morrison arrives with the punctuality that characterizes all her official activities, though her presence today represents personal friendship rather than political obligation. Her immediate engagement with community members demonstrates genuine interest in understanding the local context that shaped my decision to transition from state government to library administration, while her warmth toward David validates his judgment in choosing to marry someone whose background extends far beyond anything his family initially comprehended. The governor's interaction with Millfield residents reveals both her political skill and personal character, as she engages authentically with individuals whose lives represent the constituency she serves through state government leadership. Her questions about community needs and library services demonstrate substantive interest, while providing validation for the work that gives my life meaning and purpose. Margaret Whitmore's first direct encounter with Governor Morrison creates visible tension as she struggles to balance appropriate respect for distinguished guests with genuine conversation that might establish foundation for improved family relationships. Her careful attention to protocol while engaging in authentic dialogue demonstrates effort to modify established social strategies for circumstances that require different approaches than typical family occasions. Governor Morrison, I hope you will forgive our family's initial concerns about David and Sarah's engagement. Margaret states with visible effort to maintain composure while acknowledging uncomfortable truths about prejudicial assumptions and their consequences for relationships. Our understanding of Sarah's background and professional accomplishments was incomplete, and our assessment of their relationship suitability was based on criteria that failed to recognize her remarkable character and capabilities. The admission represents significant personal growth for Margaret, whose established pattern of behavior typically involves maintaining positions despite contradictory evidence rather than acknowledging error and adjusting perspectives based on new information. Her willingness to explicitly recognize misjudgment demonstrates both the compelling nature of evidence about my background and pragmatic understanding that continued opposition would create additional embarrassment. Governor Morrison's response provides both diplomatic courtesy and gentle education about relationship evaluation criteria that emphasize character over social positioning or external validation concerns. Her guidance reflects experience with political and personal relationships that require sophisticated understanding of individual motivation and capability assessment. Margaret Sarah represents exactly the kind of person who makes our democratic institutions work effectively through dedication to public service and commitment to community welfare over personal advancement. Governor Morrison explains with authority that comes from direct observation of character under challenging circumstances. Her choice to transition from state-level emergency management to community library administration demonstrates values that prioritize meaningful contribution over recognition or career prestige. David has chosen to marry someone whose character and capabilities will enhance every aspect of his life while contributing meaningfully to whatever community they choose to serve together. The conversation provides final validation of my professional reputation while offering Margaret recognition that her son's judgment reflects wisdom rather than romantic idealism or social rebellion. The governor's personal endorsement carries political and social weight, that completes the transformation of family dynamics by providing authoritative confirmation of decisions that were previously questioned or opposed. The gathering demonstrates the power of authentic relationships and professional excellence to transcend social boundaries and create opportunities for meaningful connection between individuals whose backgrounds and experiences might otherwise prevent mutual understanding and respect. The wedding celebration illustrates how individual character and capability can bridge differences in social position while creating foundation for collaborative relationships. As the ceremony hour approaches, the careful orchestration of security protocols and guest coordination creates atmosphere of anticipation for revelations that will complete the education of family members and community residents about the relationship between appearance and substance, between prejudicial judgment and character recognition, between social status and genuine accomplishment. The transformation of our embarrassing little backyard wedding into occasion requiring gubernatorial security protocols and federal agency coordination demonstrates how individual relationships and professional excellence can create ripple effects that extend far beyond immediate participants to influence entire communities and social networks. The morning concludes with final preparations for ceremony that will formalize our marriage, while providing definitive demonstration of the respect and recognition that authentic accomplishment generates among individuals qualified to evaluate character and capability. The revelations about to unfold will complete the process of education that began with simple wedding invitation and culminated in comprehensive transformation of understanding about worth, achievement, and the criteria that should guide evaluation of human character. The stage has been set for dramatic conclusion of assumptions and prejudices that shaped family opposition while providing foundation for relationships based on accurate assessment of individual merit and genuine appreciation of character qualities that transcend superficial social criteria and external validation concerns. The ceremony that will follow represents not merely wedding celebration, but demonstration of principles that honor authentic achievement, while rejecting social hierarchies based on inherited privilege, rather than personal contribution to collective welfare and community benefit. The transformation from morning preparation to ceremonial formality begins precisely at 2 o'clock in the afternoon, as autumn sunshine creates natural illumination that renders professional photography unnecessary, while providing the perfect backdrop for an occasion that will be remembered by all participants as the moment when assumptions met reality and prejudice encountered truth. The small garden behind my apartment building has been transformed through community effort into a venue that reflects both intimate celebration and appropriate dignity for distinguished guests, whose presence validates years of professional service and personal character development. Local volunteers have created floral arrangements using flowers grown in community gardens, while the Millfield High School Music Department provides instrumental accompaniment that demonstrates the cultural resources available within small communities when residents unite for common purpose. The seating arrangement accommodates 60 guests, whose diverse backgrounds illustrate the breadth of relationships that develop when individual excellence creates connections across organizational boundaries and social divisions. Community members occupy chairs alongside federal officials, military personnel sit near local business owners, and state government leaders engage in conversation with residents whose daily lives reflect the ultimate purpose of all public service activities. Margaret and Harrison Whitmore arrive wearing formal attire that reflects extensive consultation with protocol specialists, while demonstrating their commitment to appropriate behavior during circumstances that extend far beyond their previous social experience. Their careful attention to dress codes and etiquette reveals both respect for distinguished guests and continued anxiety about avoiding additional embarrassment through inappropriate conduct during what has evolved from family occasion to significant political and social event. Margaret surveys the assembled guests with growing comprehension of the professional network that my career in emergency management created through years of collaboration with individuals whose responsibilities affect millions of citizens during crisis situations. Her expression reveals the cognitive dissonance created by observing federal directors, military commanders, and judicial officials gathered to celebrate the marriage of someone she had dismissed as socially inappropriate for her family. Harrison engages in tentative conversation with Colonel James Mitchell, whose military bearing and obvious professional competence provide evidence of the caliber of individuals who consider me worthy of friendship and respect. The discussion illuminates aspects of my professional background that Harrison had never considered relevant to family relationships, while demonstrating the sophisticated judgment that military leaders apply when evaluating character and capability. David takes his position at the altar accompanied by his closest friend, Michael Harrison, whose architectural practice benefits regularly from David's collaborative approach and innovative design solutions. Their professional partnership exemplifies the authentic relationships that develop when shared values and mutual respect create foundation for sustained cooperation and personal support during important life transitions. The ceremony begins with musical selections chosen to reflect both traditional wedding elements and the values that guided our relationship development. The Millfield High School Chamber Ensemble performs classical pieces that create appropriate solemnity, while demonstrating the cultural resources available within communities that invest in educational excellence and artistic development. As the processional music begins, attention focuses on the garden pathway where the bridal party will appear, though few guests anticipate the significance of what they are about to witness. The moment represents culmination of personal journey from professional accomplishment through community service to recognition that transcends traditional measures of social status, while affirming values that prioritize character over convenience and substance over appearance. Carmen Rodriguez, my maid of honor and closest friend in Millfield, appears first in the processional wearing a dress that reflects both elegant simplicity and appropriate respect for the dignity of the occasion. Her presence represents the authentic friendships that develop when individuals recognize and appreciate character qualities that extend beyond superficial social criteria or professional positioning considerations. Carmen's path to friendship with me began through her work as a nurse practitioner at the Millfield Community Health Center, where her dedication to serving underinsured populations demonstrates the commitment to community welfare that creates natural affinity between individuals who prioritize service over personal advancement. Her genuine warmth and professional competence exemplify the character traits that attract authentic relationships while inspiring mutual respect and sustained collaboration. The appearance of my bridesmaids creates additional evidence of the community connections that sustained me during transition from state-level emergency management to small-town library administration. Rebecca Martinez, owner of the Millfield Inn, represents the local business community that benefits from library programs while contributing expertise and resources that enhance community development efforts. Her willingness to participate in our wedding celebration demonstrates the reciprocal support that characterizes healthy community relationships. Dr. Jennifer Walsh, the only physician serving Millfield and surrounding rural areas, brings medical expertise that complements library health information services, while providing professional validation of community development initiatives that address social determinants of health through education and resource access. Her participation illustrates how different professional disciplines can collaborate effectively when shared values create foundation for mutual respect and coordinated service delivery. As the bridesmaids take their positions, attention naturally shifts toward the pathway, where tradition expects the bride to appear accompanied by her father or designated escort. The guests who know my background understand that both my parents died in an automobile accident during my sophomore year of college, creating circumstances that required self-reliance and independence, while shaping the character traits that enabled successful navigation of challenging professional and personal situations. The expectation among community members and family guests is that I will either walk unescorted down the aisle or be accompanied by a close friend or mentor who can represent paternal support during this important transition. Few anticipate the significance of the choice I have made regarding this traditional element of wedding ceremony, though the decision reflects both personal gratitude and public recognition of relationships that shaped my professional development and current life circumstances. The moment of revelation begins as Governor Patricia Morrison appears at the garden pathway wearing formal attire appropriate for the highest executive office in the state, while radiating the personal warmth that characterizes her approach to individual relationships and community engagement. Her presence creates immediate recognition among guests who understand the unprecedented nature of gubernatorial attendance at private family celebrations, while generating questions about the depth of friendship that warrants such personal attention and schedule accommodation. The silence that falls over the assembled guests reflects both respect for the governor's office and amazement at discovering the true scope of my professional relationships and current social connections. Margaret Whitmore's expression transforms from carefully controlled anxiety to undisguised shock as she observes the state's highest elected official preparing to participate in the wedding ceremony of someone she had dismissed as an unsuitable daughter-in-law whose social status embarrassed the family name. Harrison Whitmore's reaction reveals similar cognitive dissonance as he processes the reality that his confident assessment of my background and social position was not merely incorrect, but spectacularly wrong, in ways that expose the limitations of his understanding about individual worth and professional accomplishment. His business-oriented approach to relationship evaluation failed completely to recognize capabilities and connections that extend far beyond anything his established social circle prepared him to comprehend. The assembled federal officials, military personnel, and state government leaders demonstrate professional respect through appropriate protocol while maintaining the supportive atmosphere that honors personal friendship and individual celebration. Their presence validates my professional reputation while providing community members with unprecedented exposure to individuals whose careers exemplify excellence in public service and civic engagement. Governor Morrison pauses at my apartment building entrance to offer her arm in the traditional gesture that indicates paternal support and blessing for the marriage ceremony about to begin. The symbolism extends beyond personal friendship to represent institutional recognition of character and service that transcends political boundaries while affirming values that prioritize community welfare over individual advancement. Sarah, it is my profound honor to stand in place of the father who would be tremendously proud of the woman you have become and the choice you have made in David. Governor Morrison states with emotional sincerity that reflects genuine friendship while acknowledging the significance of this ceremonial role. Your service to our state during critical emergency situations demonstrated the kind of character and capability that makes democratic institutions work effectively, while your choice to continue serving through community engagement exemplifies the values that create strong communities and healthy civic culture. Her words provide public validation of my professional contributions while offering recognition of the transition from state-level responsibilities to local community service as advancement rather than retreat, purposeful choice rather than professional. The acknowledgement carries particular significance coming from someone whose political position requires sophisticated understanding of public service excellence and individual character assessment. As we begin the processional walk down the garden pathway, the assembled guests rise in traditional demonstration of respect, while processing the unprecedented nature of what they are witnessing. The quiet community librarian they thought they knew is being escorted by the state's most powerful political figure, whose personal attention indicates relationships and accomplishments that extend far beyond anything their previous understanding prepared them to comprehend. The transformation of perspective occurs instantaneously as guests observe Governor Morrison's obvious pride in serving as escort, while noting the natural ease with which I accept this extraordinary honor. The interaction demonstrates authentic relationship rather than political theater, genuine friendship rather than ceremonial obligation, and mutual respect that developed through shared commitment to public service excellence. Margaret Whitmore watches this procession with expression that reflects complete revision of assumptions about social hierarchy and family relationships that guided her opposition to our marriage. The woman she had dismissed as socially inappropriate is being publicly honored by the highest executive authority in the state, while receiving recognition that validates character and accomplishment in ways that transcend traditional measures of family status or social position. The processional creates educational opportunity for all participants, as they observe authentic demonstration of how character and service create respect among individuals qualified to recognize excellence, while establishing relationships that endure beyond specific professional assignments or organizational changes. The ceremony illustrates principles about individual worth and social value that challenge assumptions about appropriate evaluation criteria for personal relationships and family connections. As Governor Morrison and I approach the altar where David waits with obvious emotion and pride, the significance of this moment extends beyond personal celebration to include demonstration of values that honor authentic achievement, while rejecting social hierarchies based on inherited privilege rather than individual contribution to collective welfare. The visual impact of the state's highest elected official escorting a small-town librarian down the wedding aisle creates cognitive dissonance that forces reconsideration of assumptions about worth, achievement, and the relationship between appearance and substance. The ceremony demonstrates that genuine accomplishment generates recognition among those qualified to evaluate character and capability, regardless of current professional position or social circumstances. Judge Patricia Williams, who will officiate our wedding ceremony, observes the processional with professional satisfaction while recognizing the broader educational value of witnessing authentic relationships that transcend traditional social boundaries. Her legal experience provides perspective for understanding how character assessment under challenging circumstances creates foundation for sustained respect and collaborative partnership. The moment when Governor Morrison presents me to David carries symbolic significance that extends beyond traditional paternal blessing to include institutional recognition of choices made regarding career transition and life priorities. Her willingness to serve in this ceremonial role demonstrates both personal friendship and professional respect, while providing public validation of decisions that prioritized community engagement over continued government advancement. David accepts the symbolic presentation with gratitude that reflects both personal happiness and growing appreciation for the scope of recognition that my professional background commands among individuals whose own accomplishments qualify them to evaluate excellence in public service. His emotional response demonstrates understanding that this ceremony represents not only personal celebration, but also validation of judgment that withstood family pressure and social opposition. As Governor Morrison takes her seat among distinguished guests whose presence transforms our intimate community celebration into occasion of regional significance, the ceremony proceeds with traditional elements that maintain personal character while accommodating protocol requirements necessary when high-ranking officials participate in private social functions. The exchange of vows occurs within context that demonstrates how individual relationships and professional excellence can create opportunities for meaningful connection while challenging established assumptions about social hierarchy and appropriate family relationships. The ceremony illustrates principles that honor authentic achievement while providing foundation for relationships based on character assessment rather than superficial social criteria. The moment represents culmination of journey from professional accomplishment through community service to recognition that validates choices made regarding life priorities and relationship development. The transformation of mockery into profound respect demonstrates how authentic character ultimately transcends prejudicial judgment while creating opportunities for education about individual worth and social value. Up next, you've got 2 more standout stories right on your screen. If this one hit the mark, you won't want to pass these up. Just click and check them out. And don't forget to subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss any upload from us.